Welcome, Sega fans, to the podcast where to be this good felt like ages ago. I'm Dan the Mega Driver, alongside the Sega Saturn to my Sega Dreamcast, James the SEGAGuys. How you doing, mate?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. How's yourself?
Very good, mate, because we've got a couple of guests with us today. Our friends from Gaming for Ages, coming together like a Mega Drive and a Mega CD. It's Dibbs and Bedgell. Guys, how are we doing?
Very
Good,
well.
Good. Good to see you both.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm loving your content. As I said the other day, it's like sometimes it's like you've got a hard wire into my brain talking about like Saturn imports. There's a Sonic Adventure one. Bit of a treacherous video that I've just finished watching. You know, it's mostly Sega, but you broke your promise.
We've gone rogue.
You've betrayed us.
I know. I'm thinking that's a really bad timing for coming on your show.
You were the chosen one.
I know.
Bob Dylan going acoustic's got nothing on this. Going electric's got nothing on this, mate. You know, we've crossed into dark territory.
Yeah. Oh no, it's you know, I'm one of these that have got a real soft spot for Super Mario World. It's my favourite Mario game of all time, so I did appreciate that one. It's just absolutely superb game. So no, it's great stuff. I need to play Police Noughts. I don't think either of us have played that. Have we, James? Played the translation?
I've got it on the Fenrir and I've put it on the Saru, although I haven't tried to see if it runs, but obviously it runs fine on the Fenrir. I've not had the chance to sit down and play it. I don't get a chance to sit down and play much, mate. I play games to capture footage.
It's one of those, though, places, you know, it's just a bit chunky, isn't it? It's like a lot of the games we all like are pretty arcadey and you can pick it up and put it down. I mean, Sega Rally, what is it, 3 minutes and 18 seconds, depending on how good you are. But, you know, Police Notes, yeah, it's quite a commitment. It's a good thing about doing this stuff, though, isn't it? It does, you know, you record it for the footage, but at least it gets you playing it. I mean, Police Notes has been sat on my shelf for years and years. I don't know I can't remember when the translation came out, but just didn't find the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Too much to play these days, man, especially these bloody translations and homebrew games and backlogs and everything, man. It's like no
Stop
chance.
making such good names, you homebrew aholics.
Some of them, it's like I'm doing a video on a 360 game at the moment, and that took like 10 hours to beat. And I was just like, I'm not going any further than the 2000s again. I don't think. You know, Outrun was fine, but this game, 10 hours, I can't capture that much content.
Yeah. They need new mode, you know,
video.
hard, medium, easy. I've got kids. Just take me to the end. You know?
Exactly.
Just give me the highlights.
A nice fighting game that you can play through real quick. That's
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. Well, obviously, gents, cheers for coming on. We've got a big, meaty topic to talk through today. One I've been wanting to do for a little while, and I thought it's a good idea to get a few of us on. So it's great. It's great that you've come to join us about Sega's best ever year. And obviously, you know, it's not going to be recent, despite what Metacritic said in 2024. We had some good games there, but not a patch on what we had before. But I suppose that's why we do what we do, isn't it? You know, it's all about those games of yesteryear. So we're probably going to jump straight into it because I've got a feeling that this conversation is probably going to go places. We're already concerned about the runtime.
It's not a quick one. Yeah, bring the missus, get some breakfast ready. We're going to be in for the night, I think.
So, you know, what I was thinking is, what was Sega's best year? You know, we've all got these memories of the 1990s and early 2000s and the 1980s as well, although no one out of us chose any of the 1980s. So, unfortunately, that's why I didn't map any of us to the Sega Master System, because clearly none of us care enough for SMS. But all of us have picked a year to talk through and plead our case for it to be the best year in Sega's history, and I think we've got some absolutely superb nominations there. We're going to go through them in chronological order, and Dibbs, you know, as our guest, and because you chose the earliest year, what year would you like to nominate as Sega's greatest?
Well, I'm going for an absolute banger, 1993. So this was a year, like, say, basically Sega had a really good 1992, coming off the back of stuff like the Mega Drive was doing well. Sonic 2 had just come out towards the end of 92, and it just felt like Sega had the wind in their sails, and then this is kind of going to be one of those moments where like the games blur from region to region because in America the game I'm going to mention now is it came out in December of 92, but we didn't get it till January of 93, and that was Sega dropped Streets of Rage 2, which is like, man, you know what I mean? It's like you can't get much better than that. That's like straight out of the gates 93. It's like, whoa. I mean, I saw that game on Games Master. They showed a little bit of footage, and I was like, just my mind was blown at what I was seeing. It looked like a literal arcade machine. It's like that gap just felt so small from what I was seeing in the arcades to what was then I was going to be able to play on the Mega Drive. It's like, the 16 meg cart. It's like those graphics, the size of the characters, the music, it just looked perfect. And then I got a copy of CVG. I think it was, I think it got like 95% or something like that in it. And yeah, I was just like itching to grab that game. So that was like a real bomb being dropped there right at the beginning of the year. And it was, I thankfully managed to convince my friend Wade, whose birthday it was, to get it. And he went,
Wait, go spend your money.
yeah, exactly.
All
I was
that
like,
paper and money. Go buy me a game.
I was literally flashing the magazine like buy this game, and actually it was so funny because I remember like my mum was taking me to like an optician's appointment, and we were driving up the road, and suddenly in the distance I could see this far off figure running as fast as he could, and I was like, that's Wayne. I was like, what's he doing? And suddenly he stops, he sees me, and he holds up a copy of Streets of Rage 2. And it must
At
have
that
looked
point,
like
your mum goes, "There's fuck all wrong with your eyesight."
yeah, that's a good point, actually. But I was gonna say it must have looked like an abduction because I was like, "Stop the car!" and I grabbed him and like pulled him in. It's like that copy of that game is not getting out of my sight. So I literally
Mate,
forced him to come to the
you
optician.
it's a big game because Wayne didn't run. Do you know what I mean? If
That's
he's
true.
running, he's got
Yeah.
some big news. You know
He
what I
has.
mean?
Yeah, but man, we when we got back, we just put that in the Mega Drive and we must have played it for like 3 days solid. Like I think we didn't go home or anything like that. It was just like we beat it, played it again, beat it, played it again. Just like, oh man, what a game. Just everything about it, just top quality. And like the two-player mode, like the camaraderie and stuff like that, you felt while playing it. Just yeah, just top game. So that was yeah, that's a great one to get
And that's the
93
start of
going, I
your
reckon.
year. Yeah,
I know.
welcome to '93. What a way to start,
Welcome.
mate. Oh, that was so true, though. I mean, literally, you think it was all like '91 and '92 was like momentum, wasn't it? It was building, building. Obviously, like America was kicking off and it was finding its feet. We were getting some proper games. I'd probably say before the kind of middle of '92, I was still I had a SNES, and let's not go there. But I was looking down on the Mega Drive a bit. It was still in its kind of grimy phase, and it still looked, I don't know, a bit brown in quite a lot of the games. And then it just caught fire, like Sonic
Mm.
Tuesday into Streets of Rage 2. I mean, that's a combo. That's a combo. So yeah, '93 is off to a good start. I'm a bit jealous you
Yeah.
picked that year, to be honest, because it's a bit of a stormer.
Yeah. And then, well, I guess the next thing that kind of happened really was that there was all the rumors circulating about Street Fighter 2 coming to the Mega Drive. And it was kind of it was a bit of a pipe dream, really. It's like, Nintendo had it so sewn up that it's like, how can this actually come to the Mega Drive? It's like, it was at the forefront of Nintendo's advertising campaigns and all that stuff. But then I think we started seeing early on pictures of the six-button pad in some of the magazines, and it was like, you know what? It's like, is this gonna become real? And then, like, I think it was Mean Machine Sega, the May issue. That was the first one that I saw where I kind of somehow skipped like the contents page because it had a massive picture of Chun-Li on it, but I turned right to the news and there it was, Street Fighter 2, when it was going to be the Champion Edition
Yeah.
conversion. And I was just like, oh man, it's happening. It's happening. Because I basically what I wanted out of a console was I wanted a machine that had Sonic and I wanted a machine that had Street Fighter. And it was like, and so suddenly the Mega Drive was becoming this thing that I wanted so badly. And then it was just like, I mean, I did that video before, like Journey to Special Champion Edition, because I was so excited about it, and like every issue of the magazines that came out, I was just following it like to a T, like following every detail, like just examining every screenshot until it eventually came out. And then obviously, like, that initial version that we started seeing in the previews in May and June, it got scrapped, and then Capcom took it back in-house,
Yeah.
and then they put all the turbo enhancements on it, which kind of, I always find it confuses people, because it's the Mega Drive one's got special champion edition, it's got champion edition in it, and everyone thinks it's champion edition, but it does have turbo hyper fighting in it as well, because everyone thinks the SNES version is turbo hyper fighting because it's called Street Fighter 2 Turbo, because obviously Nintendo got the full license for it, but they have the same game modes in it. So
Not the same game though. The SNES version's balked, taking out
that's
combos.
true. Yeah, the CPS combos. Yes, that's
Yeah, he
right.
knows it. That's
Mega
so.
Drive has superior combos.
Thing is, though, until those magazines, the reason it seemed like such a big turning point was, you'd had the 80s with the NES, and Nintendo just had everyone locked down. And, we were kids, we didn't talk about exclusivity deals and stuff, but it definitely seemed when I had Street Fighter on the SNES, I was sitting pretty. No one else was getting it. It felt like a Nintendo SNES game. It didn't feel like it was ever going anywhere else. So
Mm.
the fact that it opened up and it found its way to the Mega Drive, obviously amazed we got to play it, but it was a real turning point in terms of third-party support, shifting focus, and like getting things onto the Mega Drive that people maybe wouldn't have done sort of in the early 90s.
Mm.
Sega had got their hooks in, and they were getting Street Fighter. That's
Yeah.
the thing, wasn't it? It's kind of just turned the tides, and it felt, oh my
Well,
god.
Capcom were obviously cracking because of that. They even put it on the PC Engine, didn't they? They put Champion Edition on it like around the similar time, so they were obviously a lot more open to the other
Yeah.
consoles at
Oh
that
well,
point.
that's
So
that's true. If you've got Street Fighter, you shove it on every last thing you can, don't you? It's like,
Well,
yeah,
even the Amiga,
yeah,
but we don't talk about that. Let's just not go there. So,
but
yeah.
Please don't.
yeah,
I'm just watching your faces as well.
the
Just to
pain, the
see.
pain.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm
93
sitting
wasn't.
here and I'm listening to you, and it's like, oh, this amazing like buzz around Street Fighter 2 and all that, and I'm like, I know the buzz is there, but I had to live it through the fucking Amiga.
Oh, that's rough.
Like, and as I've said before, the story about how Amiga format had like rolling demos, and it was Ryu against Ken on a Honda stage,
Mm.
and I wanted to play Street Fighter 2 so bad that even though it was a rolling demo, I pretended to play along, even trying to do special moves. It was like, and again, I've said it before, I don't think people can really appreciate just the absolute stir that game caused.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like it turned head. If you've seen an arcade version of it, it turned heads. Like everybody wanted to play it. I mean, I remember there was a guy I used to live in the houses around the corner from me, guy George, and he'd a SNES. And like looking back at it now, like you think of the Palverse with the big giant borders and how slow it was and all that. But at the time, like it was still phenomenal to see that game in your house. And I always remember the advert on TV as well. Super Nintendo with Street Fighter 2. It's unbeatable. The big fist goes through the screen. Always remember that.
Yeah.
And but I just what a game, man. What a
Yeah.
game.
Yeah,
But you
it's-
just think someone in the boardroom at Sega was going and doing deals. That's the feeling you
Yeah.
get when you look back. It's like, whether it was a Tom Kalinske thing, whether it was just one of the others, who knows? But like someone was doing deals and making things happen for Sega in a way that just hadn't really been possible a couple of years ago. That momentum was unlocking things, and they were taking advantage. So,
Yeah. Well, it was like
it's-
the way they didn't even just settle for the fact that they were going to get Champion Edition at first, because of then, I mean, even in that same article that first showed off the screenshots of Champion Edition in Mean Machine Sega, like it kind of closes with a bit of a negative where it says, oh, but there's a new version of Street Fighter 2, but it's only coming to the Super Nintendo, that Street Fighter 2 Turbo or something. So it's like, I kind of thought like, oh, that's like a bit of a downer thing to say kind of right at the end there when I'm like absolutely buzzing. But it was good to know that Sega weren't gonna stand for it and they were like, no, 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 no. We're gonna have those hyper fighting enhancements in our game too. And then they got it sorted out. So yeah, whoever it was who was doing those deals, like kudos to you.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't just Capcom, was it? Because what's quite interesting about 1993 is that you had Konami really
Mm,
start to
Yeah,
ramp up what they were doing on
yeah.
Sega
yeah,
console. Because
yeah, yeah.
93, if you're talking strictly Sega Mega Drive,
Mm,
Sega's first party output wasn't as strong, perhaps, as
Yeah,
maybe 92,
yeah.
but
yeah,
Sega's output in other places
Mm,
was outstanding in 1993.
yeah.
Still good on the Mega Drive. You still had stuff like Spinball and
yeah.
Spinball. I don't like. I think it's a shit, but obviously it
Yeah.
was a notable
I
release.
know. We
Yeah.
won't mention that.
Take
You
it
had
back,
like
mate. Take it back.
Ranger X.
Yeah,
Ranger
Yeah,
X
Ranger
was
X,
out.
that was a
Yeah,
beaut.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Shining Force 293, probably in Japan only.
Shining Force. I think we got the original Shining Force in '93. It came out the year before, I think, in Japan.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I think we got the. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, like it's not the first one, as is it actually? It's Shining in the Darkness is the first Shining Force,
Yeah,
Shining game, but then Shining Force, yeah, one as I kind of think of it, what came
yeah,
out that year for us, I think.
yeah,
And we got Shinobi 3, that was another one.
yeah.
So, and Sega really wanted to get that right because it was up for review, wasn't it, early in the year, and then they pulled it back when it kind of didn't quite hit the heights they wanted to among the reviewers and tried to spice it up a bit, and that was like, a pretty good game. I think they both came out actually, Shining Force and Shinobi 3 in July. And actually, one of the other things to mention in '93 is that we got the Mega CD in this country. So it's like, it came out December '91 in Japan, but we didn't get it till 2nd of April, apparently, '93. So bit of a gap there, but we finally got it, and it was pretty awesome, actually. Just, I mean, I know that it's like, got its detractors and stuff like that. But I always loved the Mega CD. I had so much fun with the games on it that everything that negative people were saying about it, I didn't really care because I was just having a blast. It was
I
just
mean, we
like,
just we just didn't feel the negatives at the time.
yeah,
100% no. It just felt like momentum. It was like, oh, they're doing it. They're doing CD. And then obviously
yeah,
you go into 94 and 95 and what they then went on to do.
mm,
It's like you always say, they were just so exciting. They were just making stuff and chucking stuff out.
yeah,
There's rumors about a SNES and PlayStation deal circulated through those years. I don't know what the timeline was, but Sega did it. Sega were releasing this shiny, sexy CD player, and
mm,
it is a big part of the whole sort of feel that we had for Sega. They were just doing so much. Well, I think you're right, Dan. I think they had that first party support for the sort of early 90s because that's all they could do, wasn't it? They were plowing their own furrow and they just didn't have the backers. It was like the Sega story often that they had to just sort of make it happen themselves. And then their kind of arcade translations, arcade ports started to kind of dry up. But then the third party wave came in and
mm,
it's, yeah, 93 was probably that year, wasn't it?
Yeah, because then they
yeah,
start. Well,
yeah,
you look at Mega CD, it's quite funny because you get the power release of Streets of Rage 2, and
mm,
then a few months later, I'm not sure when the actual power release, but you get Final Fight CD on the Mega CD, and the
mm,
Nice.
Mega CD first party stuff is pretty immense.
yeah,
Yeah.
You've got stuff like Sylpheed, and is that first party? There's tons of like amazing Mega CD games in
mm,
1993. More
yeah.
more for us because we got it so late, so we had
Yeah,
it
yeah.
later.
Yeah, yeah. I
Obviously,
mean, we
Got to
got
Sonic
play
CD
catch up.
came out in '93 as well.
Yeah, Sonic CD we got towards the end of the year, which was like, I mean, that was the game that convinced me to get a Mega CD when I saw it. Like, I don't think I got it until into like '94 or something, but when I saw Sonic CD, it was like, yeah, yeah, I gotta get this. It was that cartoon intro, you know. It was the song. It was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible.
So I'll tell you what though, it was that card. I mean, we were bowled over by that, but I've never had such a disjoint between my memory and the reality. Because when I first, I don't know when, years ago now, looked up the Japanese intro on YouTube to watch it again, and it comes up, it's like in this tiny little letterbox, and it's really grainy, and you're like, "What the hell?" We were like, "Why were we so well for
The,
this?"
the
Yeah,
first time I seen to Sonic Warrior, and that intro was in the cinema in Sonic Jam on the Saturn. And then
yeah.
and then when I got the Mega CD, or the Mega Drive Mini 2, sorry, when I got that and played Sonic CD on that, and it's the original version with that big grey border with this tiny little, and I'm like, ooh. It's like I'm expecting to load up and be like the way it was in Sonic Jam, but still imagine if you're seeing that in '93, you're still blown away by it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
tune, man. I mean, that's an awesome tune.
That
I
is.
just, that was the convincer for me as well. But it was just so exciting, wasn't it? And it was like, and it felt like obviously it was in English, but it felt so Japanese. And manga was coming in. We were getting into like manga and anime stuff as well. And just, I don't know, it's just such a vibe. They were so exciting. They were just all these bits coming in from all over the place was in that year.
Yeah. Yeah, and then September was an absolute like incredible month in '93 because we got Gunstar Heroes, Street Fighter 2 finally came out. We got Mortal Kombat, we got Rocket Knight Adventures. It's just like, a lot of them are some of my top games. Like Gunstar Heroes is just that was just mind blowing when I first played that. That just was doing things I didn't even think the Mega Drive could do. It's like some of the effects and oh man, and the soundtrack, everything about it, the polish was just like gleaming off of it. It was, and the two-player mode just made it so fun as well. We just had so much fun with that one. That was
it's like the
incredible.
Sonic of run and gun, wasn't it? It had like the sort of traditional run and guns that have been around for a couple of years were great, but then this one just hyped it up, just went fast and quick and manic, and it was just doing what Sonic had done to platformers. But it's another thing. So Capcom, Konami, and Treasure. I mean, that's some damn good third party spot. And of course, Treasure were Sega lovers. No one else was getting that Treasure support. So
Sega were publishing the games, so they're kind of Sega games. That's why when we had the original podcast that we revisited recently, that's why one of my picks was Guardian Heroes.
Even though it's a great game.
It's not a Sega game. It kind of is because they published it. It's a controversial pick, but
I just can't get that. I've now got "Believe in Yourself" from Sonic CD in my head now. In the end, who's on your side? Who can you trust? In the middle of the night, where do you be? If you can't find you, there's no ways to go. Nothing to do. You gotta do something. Gotta do something. Believe in yourself. Yourself.
Hey!
Hey!
Love it.
Oh, mate. End the podcast. We've peaked. That was just immense.
That's that,
mate. But obviously, there were some pretty big games on the Master System as well. You had like Sonic Chaos and stuff. But, out of the Master System, we talked about the Mega Drive, especially the third party support, the Mega CD. But obviously, arcades were pretty mental as well back in 1993 with one particular game.
Yeah, we're going for Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the one, isn't it? I mean, like, wow, what a game. I mean, just changed everything, didn't it? I mean, like, I was listening to you did I think you did a Virtua Fighter thing recently, didn't you? And you're talking about its influence, like how, like, was it Ken Kutaragi? Apparently, I can't say that name. I saw it, and like, it changed the shape of PlayStation, didn't it? And it was like, I mean, just the influence it had. And I mean, like, even Tomb Raider, I think you guys were saying, took influence from it, didn't it? With the 3D
Toby Gard said it was a game that influenced that game, influenced Tomb Raider. So it was absolutely, an influence for Tomb Raider. It's the reach of that game is astronomical. When you really look into it, it's from the creation of the PlayStation all the way to like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. They've all mentioned that game has influenced them somehow. It didn't make it on the BAFTA list for some reason, but
come on, BAFTA, sort your life out.
I know, sort it out.
I mean, it wasn't a bad pick, but But I just think the thing was then that we talk a lot about the gulf between consoles and arcades, and obviously it narrows as you get towards the late 90s stuff. And at this point, it was just so gargantuan. But the thing was, mentally, Sega got the credit for that. In our heads. You must have been the same. It was like in our heads, that Golf belonged to Sega because they were the ones putting out those machines that were like at the cutting edge. So it always felt like that's where Sega are. Sega were really doing great on console, but Sega were here overall, and everyone else was on console back here, and it was just like, it was just nuts. We were. I was trying to think the other day what year we went to Trocadero and like went on the sort of virtual formula and stuff, but that was maybe peak feeling like Sega's just on a different planet.
Yeah, I think that was kind of 94-ish or something.
94-ish, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Because it was before Sega World, so it would have been 94, 95, but I think it was 94. But, that's mentally, that's what 93 felt like. Sega was just on a different planet. It was like churning this amazing stuff out. And in the arcades, it was doing that. And you just think, that's the company. Nintendo, it's very pretty, your games are very nice, but you're just not doing that. So
exactly, yeah, that is the thing. Like, I always felt like when I would pick up a Sega magazine and you look through the news and stuff, there was something really exciting going on, whereas like, if I picked up like NMS or something like that, it was like, here's a bit of news and it's kind of all right, and then there's the previews and then there's reviews, and it's like, you know what I mean, whereas Sega were like, oh, we're gonna do this next, and it was something like completely crazy, like. And it was
But
like,
you know
I mean,
what?
that is kind of why they probably ended up nearly bankrupting themselves, but
Yeah.
it was such a fun ride.
I just remember reading like NMS and a few other ones, Nintendo ones, and it always felt like, yeah, there's this lovely, colourful,
Yeah.
cutesy graphics, and most like so many of the early SNES games were like just like those cutesy platformers, and it was just like there's no edge to this.
Yeah.
Like Sega had an edge.
Well, exactly. And talking of Edge, it's like one of the games that we got this year as well in 93 was Night Trap, which
Yeah,
obviously stirred up quite a lot of trouble along with its compadre Mortal Kombat, didn't it? When they got dragged into like
yeah.
in front of the American Congress or whatever. And
Yeah,
then,
that's a bit because that's all in there for Sega as well. Obviously at the time on the face of it, they're getting it in the neck, but we all
yeah.
know that was great for Sega. They were
Yeah.
loving it.
They were like, thank you very much. It's like, but that whole thing changed the industry because, like, from that, I think, weren't they threatened with like either you come up with a way to kind of keep tabs on who can play these games, or we're going to do it for you, and then that's where kind of in a roundabout way the ESRB kind of eventually came
Was it
about.
was it on your interview with Tom Kalinske or with one of them? They were saying
About
to
to
you,
say.
we wanted this. He made it look like they were doing it to us. We were doing it, right?
Yeah.
That was on your.
Tom disappeared off camera and came back with a copy of Night Trap on the Switch, and then made a total gag at the camera. Went, what you see in my hand is Night Trap on the Nintendo Switch. Howard Lincoln said this
Yeah.
game would never be on a Nintendo machine. Even now, he's ripping the absolute piss out of Howard Lincoln. It's like, what a
It's
fucking
good
boss,
times.
man.
Yeah, yeah. That was good.
Honestly,
oh,
man.
bang a year then.
Yeah, yeah.
1993, just
Banger.
in every respect, Sega firing all cylinders. Obviously, yeah, when you start going through the first party stuff, it's still pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then you've got the third party support that was coming through with some amazing Konami games. You've
Yeah.
got the arcade games, the Sega Mega CD, especially over here. You've got some
Mm.
amazing Mega CD games. You've got Virtua Fighter in the arcade, and a few of the pretty sure like Revenge of Death Adder was that
Yeah.
93?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
And
still
we
had some.
we also got well, actually we didn't get it. It's one of those things where it kind of blurs into the next year for us, but Star Wars the Model 1 version, like that was actually out, I think, in Japan, I think it was. Yeah, Japan, August 93. We didn't get it till like April 94, but I thought I'd try and sneak that one in there. And this is a real sneaky one. The Daytona prototype was
Or
shown.
this is controversial.
I know, it was shown
Yeah.
at the amusement machine show in Tokyo, August 93. I'm trying to get that in there.
James is shaking his head.
I'm trying to be sneaky, but it's fair enough if you're not having it. So.
Fucking VAR. Hold on, getting the word through here. Hold on. Go away. Just go away.
Draw the lines. Someone draw the lines.
They're drawing the lines.
Oh man,
I
fail.
love it. It's like,
Yeah, no one else can claim it, unfortunately. So yeah,
I know. I
1990.
did
Oh, yeah.
think you guys aren't even
Someone-
close. There.
Because someone's got to get it. Because was it the same show they showed off Daytona, obviously like prototype, like they're testing it, weren't they? Putting it out for public test. Did Virtua Fighter get a demo in that year as well? I feel like in August
Virtua
that
Fighter
year,
got its full release in '93.
Yeah, it was
in
well wide
93.
release.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they, August 93 for the arcades, mega. And the thing is, I don't know when we were getting screenshots of Daytona, but it was a fair time before we actually got it in the arcades. That was probably around the end of 93 as well, wasn't it? So it's all happening.
We wouldn't have got it till '94. That was when the full release came out. But
It's like
the
March,
preview was
April
93.
94 or something for us, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my
Superb.
pitch. That's my
Yeah.
pitch.
It's a
pretty good.
pretty strong, pretty strong. pick.
Aladdin was well without.
Aladdin, God, yeah.
Just saying. I think you like that one, don't you, Dan?
Oh, I love Aladdin.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sing any Aladdin songs. I'll save people for that.
After do a special subscribers bonus at the end. We'll do the Aladdin like songbook.
Yeah.
Me and Dan singing A Whole New World.
Right.
I can imagine that.
Well, mate, it's over to you next because chronologically you come next, so you can do yours by song if you want, or pick an array of tunes from any other games in here. But you'll pick it. Do you want to tell us what year you're going with?
So I'm going for 1995, mate. And my
Chunky.
sole reason for that is, of course, the PAL launch of the Sega Saturn. My welcome into the Sega fandom after years of being denied a console by meddling fucking family members. I mean, you look at the Saturn's launch, obviously brought forward 2 months in the UK or Europe, and even earlier in the US, that inaugural E3, May 11th, 1995, Tom Klinsky tells everyone Sega Saturn, it's not just coming, it's out there, even though it wasn't. It like rolled out across the country slower than a snail, just units popping up here, there, and everywhere. But we touched on Virtua Fighter's arcade release. 93 obviously came out as a launch title for the system in Japan. In 94, pack-in game for the system in the UK, and as I mentioned in the UK launch video that I'm working on, it's like Virtua Fighter is one of those kind of games where, looking back at it, you think you can see why Sega chose to have it as a pack-in game, but hindsight has shown that it wasn't the right call. I think Panzer Dragoon would have been a far better choice as a pack-in game in this country. Would have showed the system off a lot more, would have stood up against Ridge Racer far better, would have overshadowed Ridge Racer, to be fair, given the cinematic scope and scale of it. But if you were an arcade goer, which we pretty much all were as, teenagers or kids at that point, we kind of knew what Virtua Fighter was. So if you're a fan of that game in the arcade, getting that with your Saturn was just like, they're giving us this for free? Are you kidding? And, we talked about trying to sneak Daytona in that 93 pitch, and I think, Dan, you said no one else can claim it, but we can claim it on Saturn.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It was a launch title, and again, as we've said so many times, as much as Daytona on the Saturn gets a lot of shit, for the polygon clipping and the PAL version, while it is PAL optimized for speed, it is sped up. They didn't optimize the display. Now, reading through some stuff again for that video I'm doing, apparently at the time, Sega had to make a choice between speed and full screen. They didn't have the means yet to actually do both. Like later games that they did, like Virtua Fighter 2, Sega Rally, Virtua Cop, all the kind of PAL Saturn arcade game ports were all, PAL optimized, but they had to make a decision for speed or full screen, and they chose speed, which is why the PAL version has got horrendous borders, which doesn't do any favors either. But the handling is there. It feels like the arcade. And in, retrospect, the Sega Saturn at that point in its life, with no real development tools, an industry coping with 3D, the transition, It had no right to even play that good, even to look as good as it does. And somehow it absolutely nailed it. So if you play the NTSC version, you get that lovely full screen. Well, it's not actual full screen, even the NTSC version. It's not quite top
Yeah.
to bottom. It's still a bit chopped, but it's better than it is on the PAL version. But it's just still a phenomenal fun game to play. People talk about the Dreamcast version 2001, which is an abomination. Dan just raised his eyebrows there. It's Japanese
Might be
version
talking
doesn't
about
have
that
any.
later.
I'll just shut up then. I'll just clamp up and move on. But the Saturn version was the best playing version of Daytona until the PS360 version, which then knocked it out of the park. And then you move on, again, a launch title in America. I still think the demo being packed in with the PAL consoles at launch, I still think that was almost an apology for it not being here at launch. On August 18th, we did get Panzer Dragoon. And, on the inside of the sleeve for the pack-in demo, it says that at the time, and I had no idea about this, at that point, it was the most expensive Sega game ever made. At that point, that's what they claim. It's on the sleeve. And Panzer Dragoon, I think we talk about Virtua Fighter and its impact on gaming in terms of humanoid 3D movement. Panzer Dragoon, Nick Daniel alluded to this as well in the video you did, the retrospective. It set a path for how games could tell a story through cinematics, because I can't think of any game. You had stuff on the Mega CD that was kind of like interactive graphic novels. There was an element of gameplay, but you weren't fully in control. Whereas Panzer Dragoon, very much you were in control. Okay, you were on rails, but you had those gorgeous cut scenes. There was there was a spoken language. It was made up for the game, a alien language, but the cut scenes, while not incredibly deep in terms of content, they still conveyed that kind of sense of urgency and drama. And it did very much, it made you want to play the next level. It got you, involved. It got you engaged as the player. You wanted to ride that dragon into battle. Fucking take that tower out, man. You get, a prototype dragon, man. I'm going to get, you wanted to just keep going to the next stage. And obviously, we talk about the soundtrack as well. We've all spoken about that amazing title screen with the trumpet music that comes on, but the entire score, Yoshitaka Azuma, the composer, sadly no longer with us, who composed the game's music, after the fact, something done in TV and film, but not done before in video games, where a soundtrack is composed to footage of the game. So that's why in Panzer Dragoon, it feels like the music is reacting to what you do on the screen. Like, it feels like as the camera moves, music kicks in at certain moments. And that's because, Azuma-san, he basically composed that music to go along with how a playthrough of the game went. And it suits it so well. Zwei doesn't do it. Whereas the first game does, and it works so well. But you guys touched on the arcades as well, and Model 2 was absolutely on fire in '95 as well. You had games like Manx TT Superbike as well, another big favourite. I love that on the Saturn. People shit on that, I think, quite unfairly as well. Manx TT, it's a great Saturn port. I think it was at '96 that came out on Saturn, so it was get '96. You can touch on that, but Model 2 absolutely on fire in '95 as well. We also had the big three on the Saturn, talking of Model 2, with Virtua Fighter 2, Sega Rally, and of course Virtua Cop. And while we've talked about this before, we've got the Virtua Cop had a UK and Japanese launch end of 95. Virtua Fighter 2's Japanese launch was 95, although Devs managed to get it somehow because some sod broke the street date before Christmas.
Thank you very much.
And Sega Rally obviously getting its Japanese release again. That came out in January within a week of Virtua Fighter 2 in the UK. So those three games alone, I think they showed the Saturn in a completely different light. I think up to that point, Saturn had been fighting a really poor narrative in Western media against the PlayStation in terms of because of what Ridge Racer was doing and things like that. And I always remember the episode of Bad Influence where Andy Crane no, it was Games Master.
It's Games
Was it
Master.
Games Master?
He was
Aye,
games
Games
where
Master.
he goes, good games have been hard to come by on the Sega Saturn. And you
Aye,
think about all the games that you're just talking about, and it's like,
aye.
what?
So they go over to Japan and they get a guy to go over and play the three beta versions of those games, but they changed, at least for a short time, they changed the perception of Saturn. It didn't last long, unfortunately. I think it still baffles me to this day why those three games, the way they look, the way they run, the way they play, why they didn't sell systems. I still can't believe those three games that close together didn't sell systems. And people kind of retrospectively look back and go, well, gaming was changing and people wanted deeper experiences, but that's bullshit. That didn't happen until like Metal Gear Solid was 98, Final Fantasy 7 was 97. So those were the kind of games where I think people realized that games could be more than just arcade games. But in 95, early 96, nobody was sitting there going, I want deeper content and stories.
Yeah.
You know, like Panzer Dragoon, as I said, had kind of ushered in, this is what you could do with a story. This is what you can do with music. This is what you can do with visuals. You can tell a story. You can take the player on a cinematic journey. But at that point, as you guys were talking about Sega's presence in the arcade, like they were like up there, like every machine that blew your mind had a Sega logo on it. Like you went to the arcade, it felt like every time you visited there was something new, you know, and that was a scary thing. It was like, and even though there was that giant gap, it was still kind of cool knowing that even though it wasn't the public's favorite and it was being shat on by retailers and the media, that you had a machine in your bedroom that could play versions of those games. It got to the point you were going to the arcade and you're looking about and you're going, well, that might come to Saturn. Oh, that might come to Saturn. And most of the time they did.
Yeah.
They did.
So it's just those three games, I still hold them up as, I think it's the best trifecta of AAA releases there's ever been. There's no console has had three games that big, that important release, that close together since, you know. So
that's true.
It's my phone keeps locking here, man. I've got my list of games, so I can see Dibs on to say my phone keeps. But I mean, other notable games as well. Didn't come out here with a stall, which obviously came out in the US. Why we didn't get it, you know, with Bug over here as well. Came out a couple of months after launch.
No shit too.
Or Bug Jump Shite, as it was called in
that's
Japan.
it,
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, another big arcade release is Virtua Cop 2 as well in 95. You know, just but I didn't come out again until start until 96. But I just gets back to what I was saying, that you were looking at these machines and going, oh, you're going to get a port of that. And while, you know, okay, with Manx TTs I mentioned, you didn't get the big bike in your living room to sway from side to side, but you got the 3D analog controller, which let you kind of replicate it as best you could. So it's 95. I think it's a special year for me because of memories. Obviously that memory of that unveil of the Saturn by surprise, will live with me forever. That, you know, getting to play Virtua Fighter in the home again, as I said in the video that I'm working on for the 30th anniversary, it's like people going about the clipping of the stages and the clipping of the polygons and the replays and all that. But again, it's easy with the cynicism of the decades of technology that's come, the influence it has on you. It's easy for people who weren't there to see it to look back and go, oh, that's a really bad port. Oh, that's off. But like when you were there and you seen that running in front of you in your living room and you'd been playing it in the arcade every weekend, man, to our eyes, it was like the arcade game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still the best way to play Virtua Fighter in the home. The Model 1 emulation is still shit. The Astro City Mini version, unfortunately, as good as it looks, it's got major issues. It's massive slowdown during replays. You get further into the game, you get slowdown that makes some of it really unplayable.
Oh man.
The best way to play Virtua Fighter 1 in the home is still the Saturn version. And people will go, and what about the apology that was Virtua Fighter Remix? Virtua Fighter Remix was a halfway house test for texture mapping to prepare for Virtua Fighter 2. It was not an apology. Sega could have released it if they wanted, because it was at E3 95 behind closed doors and people seen it. So
there you go.
They chose not to.
Yeah.
I just think with Daytona, all I know is we played it to death. And that's the answer, isn't it? We had the choice of other games, we had the choice of other systems, but when, later on in that year, we didn't bat an eyelid. I know Dibbs went on about the frame rate, but I mean, and I'll confess at the time I was like, I didn't even know what the frame rate really was. And it's just going on, it's not as good as the arcade, but we played it to death at home, because it played so good. And of course, you got a bunch of unlockables. There was a bit of extra tactics with the other cars, and we did develop a sort of preference for our own particular color of car, and we developed our own tactics for getting around the course, different from the arcade. Because
I like the one that could drive across the grass without slowing down.
Yeah, and the one that could hit the wall without slowing down. That was good.
Yeah.
But it's like, we played it to death. That's the bottom line, and it had been a long wait for the Saturn. We've been talking about it and reading about it, and we've been through the kind of Sega sort of like birthing pains with its other systems and other ideas and stuff. And when that came out and we had Daytona, we were happy. Yes, Dibbs went on about the frame rate a bit, but we absolutely nailed it for month after month after month. And I think when we love a game that much, we didn't really even notice that the library was a bit thin, because we knew it was, but we had enough. It's like, we tended to binge on one game, and that game just kept us going. We'd have the three of us taking turns, round robin, all of that stuff, month on month. Just never got tired of it. That's how good it was. So people say what they like about the graphics, it just didn't stop us.
Yeah, we all had our track that we were the master of, and then someone was trying to break into that top score or whatever, top time rather. It was just I mean, there were people who weren't even interested in games that we used to hang out with, who used to come round to play it and stuff. It was just it's just a brilliant game. You map the gears to the actual buttons on the front and stuff like that, and you can do that power slide just like the arcade. I mean, it's you're saying, it's it is like the arcade game, to a T. It just nails the controls, and everything that we were doing in the arcade we were then doing on the Saturn version, and it was just felt great. I mean, we just had a blast with it.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were expecting it to look like the arcade. They've been hyping it up in the magazines and saying how it would, it was bringing the arcade experience home and stuff. But we'd seen arcade conversions for the last sort of 5-6 years. We knew that they didn't marry up to the graphics in the arcade. That was part of the magic of the arcade. It's like watching something on video versus the cinema. You want the arcade to have its place, but it played amazing, and we were happy.
It's the biggest tragedy, I think, is people just don't appreciate what a gargantuan piece of technology the arcade was, because it was the most advanced arcade machine in the world, the Model 2, and there was literally nothing else like it. The Street Fighter 2 was amazing back in 1991, but it wasn't the most advanced arcade machine in the world. And even that, coming to the then brand new Super Nintendo, had cutbacks. Cut animation, had much smaller resolution, smaller sprites. So I don't ever understand why people expected Daytona to look like a arcade perfect. It's just a fallacy that they did. I mean, Ridge Racer was closer to the arcade, but Ridge Racer doesn't have 40 cars on the track.
Exactly.
Doesn't
Yeah. And the bottom line is Ridge Racer could have been HD, 60 frames a second, absolutely perfect, exceeded the arcade, and I wouldn't have given a shit because it's an awful game and it plays like dog shit. I don't want to play it. It can look as pretty as it wants. I just don't want to play it because it's not fun. So,
Right. Do you have the same thing with Ridge Racer as me? Whenever you steer the car, it feels like you're steering the scenery round the car, not the car round the scenery. I fucking hate that fixed camera, honestly. And see that soundtrack? Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh,
it's the audio version of a migraine. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I hate it. Do you know? I'm trying to think what it is.
This does my nothing, man. Honestly. And then he gets that rebate goes, watch the surf, watch the surf, watch the surf, watch the surf. It's like, oh, what the fuck is this, man? And then it's like, no, it's like happy hardcore gone mad. No, just
probably that music on its own is enough reason why Daytona wins. It's just that you could just go with the music. No, Ridge Racer. I'm trying to think. Is it in Sabuto where the goalkeeper's on a little stick and you kind of like doing him from about a mile away? That's how Ridge Racer feels to me. It feels like I'm driving the car at the end of a stick like this. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like you're in the car. I know people say, "Oh, it's you meant to play in first person." It's like, it should play good in any mode you're playing, but it feels like you're at the end of a stick. Whereas Daytona, it feels like you're right. You turn your body, it feels like you're in it that much.
Daytona feels good in all four views. Ridge Racer feels good and feels okay in one. I do
You're
like
being
Ridge
generous
Racer.
there, mate.
The behind the car view is an abomination. That's a perfect explanation. That's a perfect description of it. It's being just controlling the Subuto goalkeeper.
I'd say with that thing, like why those three at the end of '95 didn't shift systems. I just think a lot of the market that went on to lap up PlayStation just didn't know what they wanted. You had arcade diehards like us that would come through, and we wanted the arcades, and we got them on Sega. You had like Mega Drive and SNES sort of console gamers that were coming through and just looking for the next big thing. But you did have an absolutely massive contingent going 95 to 96 that just hadn't been there before. Sony had convinced them to come and play, and fair play to them, they'd created that market, but they just didn't know what good looked like. All these people, sorry, this is going to get me in a lot of shit, but all the people now that tell me they love Ridge Racer, I just think, mate, you just obviously hadn't played anything better before, because it's just such dog shit. You can't think that's what good looks like. So I just think it was a new market. They just didn't know, did they?
It's what's popular as opposed to what's good. I mean, the Minecraft movie just made $1 billion in the cinema. It just says it all about.
The UK launch ad for the Saturn as well. I think that the fact that you had Valkyrie controlling the Daytona car, I think that was almost kind of prophetic. It plays so good it feels real, and that's like, I think that sums up Daytona on Saturn. It plays brilliant. Who gives a fuck how it looks? I mean, Model 2 games. Model 2 games we had with Max TT Superbike, as I said, with Sega Rally Championship, with Sky Target, Virtua Cop 2. So far, all 4 of those got Saturn ports. Moving on, we had Fighting Vipers again on Saturn. Indy 500 was meant to come to Saturn but got cancelled. Virtua Striker, would have loved to have seen that on Saturn. So, I mean, you've got plenty there. As we just said, these were all cutting edge arcade games that came to Saturn, and all of the ports of those games are more than respectable. Like Virtua Cop 2, man, Jesus Christ, it's like I know I prefer
veering into Bedgell's territory there a little bit. The Saturn ports of those
setting me up. Yeah.
I know that's it. But so that's my pitch from '95. I think the launch of the Saturn, bringing the arcades home and bringing the most advanced arcade board in the world home and doing it in plenty of justice. And that, my friends, is 1995.
That's strong. That's strong.
Nice. That's good.
It's a banger year, mate.
Yeah.
I think the Saturn stuff alone puts it, as well as a classic Sega year. But I've got to talk about Rystar. Rystar was 1995, one of my favorite games of all time.
I wasn't there, mate.
You forget how deep the Mega Drive went, don't you? You just think
there were some great games on the Mega Drive. Mega CD. I think it wasn't as strong, but you still had stuff like Earthworm Jim CD and what
Hmm.
else came out in '95?
Oh man.
I think
Road Rash
did we get?
CD.
You'll have to forgive me because I should know this one. But didn't we get? Oh no, we got PAL Snatcher end of '94,
We got
and
Snatcher
then
before the US did.
America got it start '95, I think. But it was
Yeah.
late, wasn't it? So that was like right button up against '95,
Can't
whenever it
remember.
was.
I sort of felt like it was more like around the middle of 94, wasn't it?
I don't
I might
know.
be wrong. I might be
Yeah, it
wrong.
came out just
Well,
before Christmas, I think.
yeah,
Oh, was it?
because
Okay.
you were
I
saying it was a
listened to them.
Christmas game, actually, weren't you? Like in when you did your Snatcher vid. So there you go. We can piece it together using our old man memories.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I think we've lost James for the second. I'm sure hopefully he'll be back in a sec. But
Hmm.
Reg, it comes down to you next. Because if you want to talk about the year that you have chosen to be your to be Sega's greatest in your eyes.
Well, I mean, we said it before. A lot of stuff bleeds into one year into the next, isn't it? And it's definitely true for me. So, because Dibbs had his Saturn from launch in '95, and so we were playing it, and so him, and then our other mates started getting their Saturns in '96, and so a lot of my play on Saturn was happening in '96, but I didn't get mine till the back end of '96. So then it's kind of bleeds into '97. So I've had to kind of piece together what was actually belonged to Sega in that year through meticulous hard work known as Wikipedia. But I mean, like games releases, this is for me, this is where Saturn got its momentum. So you've obviously end of '95, you get the big three, and then you're playing them in '96. And so the feel of it, it's like we were saying at the start of '93, you get Streets of Rage 2, and that sets the year up a beaut. I mean, that end of '95 sets '96 up like a treat, and I think would have been round your house, round Scrooge's house, playing like some of these big hitters, and just you feel like you've landed. '96 felt like right. It's finally found its feet. It was a rocky start, and it was taking a lot of
Hmm.
flack, the Saturn. But '96, you're just starting to think, yeah, this is feeling really good now. You're feeling hopeful. Obviously, Sega magazine was like endlessly optimistic about Saturn, but it was in this period we're starting to get quite gung ho, and it was like really bigging it up and saying, "Oh, look what's coming! The pipeline's looking great." It was momentum. '96 was just the year when things landed. So I'll have to go to notes so I get them right. But so what do we get? So you got Sega Rally Jan, like '96 for PAL. So we've obviously that is the first one in there. You got Alpha towards sort of early part of the year, Alpha 2 towards the end of the year. Like for us, like I mean, for me, Alpha 2, I know it's Capcom, not Sega, but for me, like that is my Saturn experience was just like Alpha 2, Bomberman, Sega Rally. And that's all. It's all happening in '96. Well, a Bomberman we were playing in '97 actually, weren't we? But it's all kind of that year. All the stuff I remember about the Saturn was coming out. So what else? Get Nights. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
Jesus, I didn't get Nights. I was around Phil's house and Scrooge's house playing Nights, but it was just I don't know. That was you had the first bit we were talking about. The Sega was like landing its big hitters. It was bringing the arcades home. It was getting momentum, and then Knights just reminded us it still had that like crazy creativity as well. I mean, you'd never call any of those arcade releases safe because they were doing massive new things, but they also felt kind of they weren't so zany as some of Sega's titles. So when Knights came back out, I don't know, maybe that was what completed the package for me. It's like you've got the big, bold tech advance in Sega, and you've got the zany, crazy new ideas Sega, and they're both still alive. So you're going into like the latter part of '96, and I guess it was like our faith restored, wasn't it? We'd had that long, long wait for Saturn. It was just starting to get a little bit like running out of steam. Then the Saturn library was a little bit shaky at the start. Daytona, aside, we were still loving it. '96, the momentum started, and by the end of it, it was like faith restored. You've got enough there that you could have just stopped. Enough that we loved already, and it just felt like faith restored. It was like Sega had kind of landed these big arcades. It had started to land console like ports as well, and then wait, when do we get so Guardian Heroes as well? So again, go back to third party support. Dog like already beginning to dog Sega and the Saturn by that point that Sony was getting this third-party support, and like Sega wasn't. But Insroot Treasure yet again to like give us an absolute big hitter. I think 96 just felt so shiny and new, you know, where Virtua Fighter and Daytona just had their troubles in like graphically and got all the knocks or whatever. In 96, everything coming out just felt massive. Alpha 2 looked massive. Guardian Heroes looked massive. You know, Sega Rally was just immense and like endlessly playable. And then when did we get Virtua Cop 2 as well? That must have been 96 as well.
That was late 96, yeah, because I got that for Christmas. That was my Christmas present.
Just so big. And the polish started coming in as well. So yeah, 96 for me is like my core. It's the core year where the games I loved on the Saturn, basically the majority of them came out. But it also felt like our trust and faith in Sega came back. You know, we never lost it. We were massive diehards. We never really got off the wagon. But it was shaky in 95, you know, and sort of once it was launched and you started getting those titles coming out, yeah, it comes back. By 96, I felt like we were back. Like PlayStation can do one. I felt we were winning. I know like nothing else was saying we were winning. I felt like we were winning. So
whenever you said core there, I thought, come on, man, you must lean into Tomb Raider after that. You know,
yeah,
an exclusive.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, that
2.5 week Saturn exclusive.
Still exclusive.
Yeah. I mean, like I had an interview with those devs, and they did literally just say, I mean, we all know the stories about the dev kits and stuff, but they literally just said we would have done Tomb Raider 2, like lockdown or whatever it's called, exclusivity be damned. The reason we didn't do it, it was just such hard work. It was just such hard work programming for the Saturn. You know, we could knock out the PlayStation 1 like in a third of the time, whatever. But yeah,
because Sony were sitting there like Jordan Belfort, but the fun like that.
Exactly. Amazing how the second that deal expired, the fact that those games would go straight on the Dreamcast, wasn't it?
Last revelation.
Yeah. But I mean, so yeah, that's my pitch for console. I mean, arcade, Sega still were like rattling them off, but the only big one for me in the period would have been Scud Race, you know, and even then we barely got a game on it. I think it was you don't even remember it in Eastbourne, but like I've maybe went in there twice and it was there, and I can picture it. I was blown away by it. It was a big deal, but you know, maybe just it's funny because we always say we're like massive arcade fans, but I guess even us the console was so strong by that point, we weren't as big in the arcades.
Yeah, we weren't going there so much, I guess, around those kind of days. So.
96 was still huge on Model 2, though.
Yeah.
They're still churning them out. I guess it was just
Virtual On, I think, didn't you? 96.
You've got Dead or Alive. You've got Dynamite Cop, Virtua Fighter 2.1. You've got what else? Dynamite Cop, Last Bronx, Sonic the Fighters, Virtual On. It's just a Sega touring car.
Yeah.
They had
that one. I remember they had that one in the arcade we went to. That was good. So fast on it and that.
Yeah, we did get a go on Virtual On arcade as well, and that's a storm. I don't know where we played that though, because I can't imagine our place had it. But yeah, I mean, big. Don't get me wrong. You know, I think it still felt like. I mean, Sega felt huge in the arcades for a long time after that. Still into kind of 97, 98, they felt like they were still untouchable arcade kings. But
there was only so many pound coins we had, I think, at that age, wasn't there? So.
It was just. I think it was just. You know, while we still loved them, we still impressed by them. I think we were getting sucked into consoles as well, and just saying they were that good at home. You know, we were very happy. You know, I think we played a lot early 90s, the amount of Street Fighter we played in the arcade. But by the time we had Alpha 2, I didn't need the arcade for Street Fighter then. I was very, very happy with what I had on the Saturn. So yeah, so still big, but just maybe didn't suck us up, you know, as much. But
yeah, I think the Model 3 stuff was big because obviously you had Scud Race and you had Virtua Fighter 3. I mean, the first time I saw Virtua Fighter 3 in the arcade in 96, my mind was absolutely blown. I was like, this is it. They're real life now. It's like their eyes are moving around.
Yeah, it was the eyes, wasn't it? It really stood out.
Yeah.
He's looking at me.
Yeah. But I think it was only Sega that were able to maintain that kind of that kind of distance between the home and the arcade because I remember reading this article. My friend always got the PlayStation magazines, obviously, and he was like, "Look, Tekken 3 is the greatest fighting game ever made," and it had like this. It was like a tournament. It was facing these games off against each other, and Virtua Fighter 3 lost against Soul Edge. It said Virtua Fighter is so good. Virtua Fighter 3 is too good to ever come home. So that's why it can't win.
Oh,
So
really?
it's because it was too advanced. That's such a cop out.
Yeah. What, the 30 frames a second Soul Edge or whatever it
Yeah. Oh god, that. Yeah. 30 frames per second. This should be illegal on a
Yeah,
fighting game.
game. No way, you can't do
Best
that.
thing about Soul Edge was the intro.
Yes, it was.
I mean,
shine.
I remember going in the arcade and when they landed the Daytona 2 machine and seeing the swinging ship and seeing it move, and it still had the wow factor. You know, it was still a single player cab, the one we had. So it had the absolutely gigantic screen and it looked amazing. And same for Scud Race, like they weirdly tucked it over the side of our place.
They sadly lost their lives actually when the arcade burned down on the Eastbourne Pier, and I was thinking, there's a Daytona 2 coin up in there.
Swimming out to get it.
Yeah.
There's people drowning. Screw them, get some guys. Yeah. But like
Safety toilet.
They still had the wow factor, but it just, I don't know, I just wasn't following it.
I think it was just arcades as a whole had died off so much, and PlayStation and Saturn had caught up to arcades. And you had stuff like STV where stuff like Die Hard Arcade and Athlete Kings were all coming to the arcade in '96 and then also coming home pretty much like months later.
Yeah.
See, I was still in complete awe of the arcades. No, House of the Dead was '97.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think
I was still in awe of the arcades in '96, but I still went to booths like every week. Like my uncle still took me in, and like I had like he gave me £3. I had to choose wisely which 3 machines.
That don't go far, mate. That don't go far.
I was especially like if you just get pumped in the first like round of like playing Virtua Fighter or something, like that's my first £1 away. It's like there you go. But
that's why you need an arcade faithful home port of Virtua Cop so that you can learn it all at home and then go in and wow everyone when you go.
I do remember some of my friends at school where they played Virtua Fighter for the first time and it got down to like the last round or something, and they accidentally like jumped backwards and like went right out the ring. They came in just ranting about it at school, like that game sucked. It's like did this weird.
That's what I did against Dan online because I'm not used to being player 1, and I tried to jump up and kick. Whenever Dan was player 1, I was player 2. And in my head, I'm in the left hand side of the screen, so I'm holding like up,
oh man,
which was actually me jumping away. So I jumps at the
ring. Screwed by the muscle memory. I mean, I'll tell you what,
you can't defeat me. Goodbye.
I'll tell you what, if you're ever down in Eastbourne, right, we'll take you up the pier, and obviously it's burned down, like Div said, right? But there's still the pier's not burned down. The long stretch is still there, and there's this little wooden frame around the side of where the arcade used to be. It looks like a foundation, and I can point to you. You can stand in the spot. This is where Sega Rally was.
Mate, that's a video, by the way.
Yeah, I mean it's worth looking at. It's a little bit like the line round the corpse, It's a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I tell you what,
I
went to a Flats in the summer last year and did that, which is why I'm talking about it. And you get a tingle. You know what I mean? You're feeling like, this is history. This is like standing in
a lot of memories there. Lots of memories.
I went into booths as well to try and like record. Like I remember when I walked in, it's all that. So the basement where all the arcade games they set up the kind of the big releases upstairs, and as I said, like that summer they had the big 3 screens facing out into the street to like get attention, and like grannies missing their bus because the crowds were at the bus stop and all that. And but upstairs was the pool tables. Middle floor was mainly kind of slot machines and again kind of big arcade releases, and then downstairs was like that's where everything the cool shit was. It was all just games.
Yeah,
and I went in with my phone. I planned to do it as part of the video. I walked in, and this wee oddity person wee woman comes out to me and goes, excuse me, son, you can't film in here for legal purposes. And I'm like, sorry, what? It's the gambling establishment. You aren't allowed to film in here. And I'm like, all right, okay. Fine, fair enough. And I'm like, trying to, so a little kind of memory video used to come here when I was a kid, and I'm just wondering if the basement area still. No, the basement's been closed off for many years. It's inaccessible, and I'm like, all right, okay. Well, I'm guessing I'm not going to get a chance to. I was
Oh,
like,
she
it
runs a
would have been
tight ship.
amazing. I was
Yeah.
like, it would have been amazing to go down again, like you said, because I could be able to point out like where I played VF2, where I played House of Dead, where I seen Scud Race,
Yeah,
Sega Touring Car, Initial D, F355 Challenge, all these games that you remember. And nah, she wasn't having it, man. She ushered me out the door,
Well,
basically,
listen,
because I was trying to film. So
if she's watching now, contact James. tell him he can come back.
Exactly.
just let me in, let me just.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let
one,
me
one of
in.
us. I wonder if it's still got the kind of the burgundy kind of like sweaty material on the walls that it had down there. It's like it was with the red carpets, brown and burgundy walls. Man, what a place! I can see it.
Oh, sad
I'm
times.
feeling it. I'm feeling it. Yeah. Well, if we're talking arcades, now the one thing I think I've got the dates right. September '96 launch of Sega World. So we didn't go to Sega World. We went to Trocadero when it was just Trocadero, but Sega World September '96. So it feels a bit incongruous because you don't sort of necessarily think that's when Sega be launching something massive like that. But yeah, so '96 to '99, I think Sega World was. So
Yeah, it would have been from when they were probably planning it from their heyday, and by the time they actually got it sorted,
yeah,
obviously,
exactly. Are you sure we still want to do this? Like
yeah.
we're hemorrhaging money. Yes, done it now.
Well, that place
We
hemorrhaged
bought-
money as well, didn't they? They were,
Yeah.
they were giving away free tickets in Sonic the Comic at the time,
Oh
saying
yeah.
ticket value £2, and they're like I still got my comics. It's got the vouchers cut out. But I
Oh
listened
no.
to the Sonic the Comic podcast where they go over like all the old issues, and what happened
Yeah,
was they'd initially had like the price was like tenner to get in, then it was a five, and then they were giving away these tickets when it was £2.
yeah.
But by the time that between them saying right, we'll put the vouchers in the issue, between them agreeing that and the issue coming out, the tickets were like almost redundant because they changed it to free entry and pay per play on the machines.
No.
It's like, that's how quickly things were changing.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd have never got down. If I'd have said to my uncle to take me to Sega World in London, he'd have balked, man. Like he gave me £3 every weekend, man. He was to take me to London. Imagine.
yes, James, you can go if you can get there on £3.
Yeah. Oh,
Nah,
but
but so-
96 in general, though, Bedge, I mean, that would have been my pick. Obviously, I'll let you go first, but that
Very
is
gem,
one
yeah.
hell of a year. One hell of a year. Obviously, you've talked about nights, and then there's Christmas nights as well. We had stuff like we haven't. I don't think did we mention Dragon Force? We had Dragon Force.
Yeah.
Shine on the
The
Holy Icon
vast
just come out in
land of
Japan.
Legendra.
Yes. God, we had Sega Worldwide Soccer '97 that came out because that was just absolutely phenomenal. There's just so many. And then you had like, obviously you had Sonic 3D on the Mega Drive, and that later came out on the Saturn. Can you count like Virtua Fighter Kids? It's more of a curio, but you did have stuff like Three Dirty Dwarves, and you had Parodius. Police Knots obviously came out in Japan. But God, there's so much that came out. That was just Sega throwing everything.
Oh,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Soccer '97, man. Me and Sam played that so much. Like between like kicking the absolute shit at each other because you could like into the most ridiculous slide tackles in that game without getting punished, even with fouls turned on. Like watching Graham Souness in his prime kicking lumps out of players. But and laughing at Gary Bloom on his commentary, like a foul in the halfway line. That must be a sport kick. Yes, and let's look at that from another angle. Yes, this makes it clear now. You talk about me. It's like,
Oh yeah.
But you know what? I really feel like us lot missed out on the football games on the Saturn. I've sort of got the buzz a bit more from hearing you guys talk about it on the pod. We knew they were out there, but we never quite latched onto them, did we? And it's there's some good games there. So
97
97
so
is-
good, man. Like, I think that's the two games that me and Sam used to play like a lot of Sega Rally split screen. We play a bit of VF2 till I get fed up with getting double kicked and shoulder charged to death. And then he had Athlete Kings as well, which was just he brought that up to mind like pretty much every time he came up. So it was like Athlete Kings and Worldwide Soccer '97, the two games I kind of associate the one with playing games most with Sam was just like Athlete Kings is like so good, man, like just so addictive. But that and Worldwide Soccer '97, man, what memories! Just we put so many hours into those two games, unbelievable.
Yeah, you think, I mean, Mega Drive, right? Absolutely massive for sports games, and there were so many kind of casual players that were playing it. Maybe even more in America than over here, but for the hockey, the football, American football,
Yeah, EA hockey. We had
and I guess
in on that, didn't we?
I guess it just kind of there was just a little bit of a disjoint, wasn't there? Like if that contingent was really carried over to Saturn, it felt like we lost a few of them on the way because
Yeah.
yeah.
I think EA took a year off their big, except for FIFA. EA took like a year off of everything, and I think that didn't help. And
FIFA
Sony had their own.
96 is so bad.
It's terrible.
Saturn.
FIFA 96 is a
And it came in a big stupid case as well. What's
Yeah.
case all about? Honestly.
Well,
haven't got it to hand.
Blue ones or whatever on the
Aye,
edge, aren't
big
they? Yeah.
I've got 97. That's in the big stupid case.
That's it.
It's
Aye,
a
it was one of
beast.
them.
Yeah.
My uncle
Horrible
brought it out of his
things.
bag. He's like, oh, I've picked up FIFA for you. I'm like, oh, he's a look at that. I'm like, what the hell is this box?
Anything
It was as bad as if a Street Fighter the movie get brought out his bag that he brought back from work. Like, what the fuck is this? It's like,
Bigger the
what is
box,
this
the worse the
box?
game. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I came to play Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga. This was the best version of Street Fighter I've ever played in the whole man. Like,
James is back there going, it's not bad actually.
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. It was ugly, but it played all right.
Yeah.
Just-
Captain
did we mention-
Sawada or whatever, extra character.
Yeah, Captain
Yeah.
Sawada.
Yeah.
AKA Fei Long. If you beat the game with him, apparently Fei Long's music plays.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think I got that far.
Yeah. No, I've never played it with him. Did we mention Panzer Dragoon Zwei?
What I miss? I've got my big list, and it's right at the end. I sort of thought it's like about half an hour before we start. It's like, oh shit, when did Pan's Dragoon Zwei come out? Yeah, and that was another massive one for us because you had that too. So like we were just we were saying, you know, we did a vid on Pan's Dragoon a while back. We were saying we really glossed over the first one. It was the second one where we really got into.
Yeah,
the
we felt
series.
that. Yeah, we were really into the second one. I mean, the second one was when I wanted to show off my Saturn, what it can really do. Like, you know, I would put that.
first one did that as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
When-
but like,
when
it was
you
like,
look
know,
back,
the scale of
yeah.
everything, wasn't it? In the second one, like going off that cliffside and things like that, and it was, yeah. I mean, I just remember because I just felt like the Saturn had such a bad reputation at that point. Whenever anyone turned up around my house who kind of like hadn't really experienced it before, it's like, right, I've got to put on a banger here, like show them what it's all about. And yeah, that was the one I would often go for. Yeah.
Stage 4 in the first game matches anything the second game does. See the speed that you traverse the caves.
Yeah, that
Like
is
it danced.
cool, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the claustrophobic, the kind of the tight camera, the way the dragon speeds up, slows down, changes direction suddenly.
Yeah,
The pace
it's
that
done
moves at.
beautifully.
Aye,
And you mentioned it earlier as well. I just think we massively undersold. This is us too. That massively undersold the first one because when you go back, that soundtrack, man. I mean, the second one sounds
Man.
good, but obviously
Yeah.
it doesn't have the red book, does it? And just that first game is just astonishingly
It's
good.
so good.
Hands up, I think we both played it again back a few months back, and we were like, why didn't we not latch onto this more? Because it's just an absolute gem.
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
because we were so
Spike.
into the arcade, weren't we? It was like when the Saturn was coming out, what I was waiting for was Daytona and Virtua
Yeah, we were
Fighter.
just
We were
playing
complete
Daytona.
arcade kids and stuff. And it's like, I mean, it was like incredible. And I had that demo that you were mentioning, James, and stuff. But yeah, we probably didn't give it as much time as we should have. But yeah, but it's good to even come back to it now and just be completely blown away by how good it
Yeah.
is.
And I suppose rounded, I can't rattle you off what Japan was up to in '96, but I mean, I imagine there's absolutely tons. But September '96, Sakura Wars, like we wouldn't have known it, but just in terms of Sega's strengths, you know, for them, that launched an absolute behemoth. You know, it just So
Well,
for
yeah.
like for Sega as a company, you know, we may not have been feeling that one over here at the time, but you know, they were starting things over there that laid some seeds for later on, and obviously got another game on the Saturn and did very well for them that first title on Saturn over there. So other stuff going on there as well, which I can't really rattle off, but give them credit.
Yeah. There's plenty. I won't go into it because we'd be here all night.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on over there. A lot of SEGAGuys games came out over there in '96, which outrun. Need to say more.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Nailed
it.
'96,
Yeah.
another phenomenal one. '95 and '96 back to back, really. When you look at what was happening in Sega at that time, absolutely astounding. So round to me, and I think after '96, it does kind of fall off a little bit for Sega. The releases get a lot less.
Mm.
Um, you have like the Saturn. It feels like they kind of gave up a little bit, especially in the West in '97. You don't really have the big releases. '98, obviously, the Saturn was out the door.
Bernie Stoller's fault.
So what's that, mate?
Bernie Stoller's fault.
Bernie stuff. Blame Bernie. Yes, indeed. 98 was a transition year between the Saturn and Dreamcast. 99 was still a kind of that launch year. So, but I'm going to go with 2000, which is an absolutely ridiculous year. So obviously you got the Dreamcast in its second year, maturing. It's had the big launch. 1999 has been extremely successful for it, especially in the West. Software's maturing. We're finally getting online games. You know, after the promise of 6 billion players, it only took a few months for us to actually get that after launch, after the people whining on Watchdog, which we had a good laugh about, didn't we, James?
Oh, Anne Robinson chastising Sega, and then the woman doing the demo going like, so if you want to get online, you plug it into the back, and she plugs the power cord in and goes, and away we go. And I'm like you've just plugged in a power cord, hen, like that's not the internet cable. Like, if you're going to try and show up Sega, like do it right. Like, at least plug in an Ethernet cable,
Like
a
Harrison
telephone
Ford.
cable.
Harrison Ford in The Force Awakens. That's not how online works.
I'm like, Ethernet cable. I'm going to the OG Xbox and a telephone cable. Like, come on, man. If you watch that Watchdog footage back, watch it. She plugs a power cord in and goes, just plug it into your phone line, and off you go. And it's like,
I will say this for Watchdog though, that's still better games coverage than Bad Influence. So you know they've got that.
don't start me in Andy Crane, man.
Oh man.
Right.
This is Sega Saturn. Oh, he plays games on carts as well as discs.
It was when he pretended to play games and he would just like haphazardly like press every button at the same time.
Or when he's playing
It's like-
Virtua Fighter and that footage is going like that.
Yeah, it's really irritating.
It's a Saturn's brand new game, Virtua Fighter. And I'm like, mate, why are you jumping in the spot? Like, what are you doing? Like, is it like a Jack Russell attached to your ankle or something?
If you was playing a game next to him, he'd definitely get a dead arm, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He'd be up.
Smack in the mouth, man.
So 2000, then we had online coming on its own on Dreamcast. We had Naomi coming, like the synergy with Naomi in arcade cabinets. We had some brilliant third-party support. Before I get into the Dreamcast stuff, we did have Sonic Pocket Adventure on the Neo Geo, which that is a superb little game. A lot of remixed version of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, so obviously I'm a big fan of that. But amazing little game. So Dreamcast games, I'm just going to rattle these off. These are first-party games. So Choo Choo Rocket saw us come in with the online stuff. Then we had Crazy Taxi. We had Shenmue in the West. Virtua Tennis, Jet Set Radio, Skies of Arcadia, Fantasy Star Online, Metropolis Street Racer, Skies of Arcadia, Ferrari F355 Challenge. We had Samba de Amigo. And then you get to your kind of weird stuff that's, okay, it's not as good as the games that I just listed off. You got WWF Royal Rumble, which wasn't the SmackDown game that we wanted, but no, decent fun. You got Virtua Athlete 2K, which is okay. Which is, you know, we loved that game. Like me and my friends played it all the time. Not as good as Athlete Kings, but it had 4-player support. Samba de Amigo, you had the NFL, NBA, 2K games. You had Sonic Shuffle. You had the Typing of the Dead. You had Seaman. you had Sega GT. I'm sure there's loads more that I've left off that list, and that's just the first party stuff.
Man, that's
And just a taste of what we're getting third party. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Capcom vs. SNK, Quake 3 Arena, which was fully online and had crossplay with the PC. I mean, as
Oh,
far as if you're just going on kind of console performance, that is an utterly ridiculous year. And kind of you come back to what we were saying earlier. It's like 1995. You've got these great games on the Sega Saturn. You've got the big three that come out, and people still bought the PlayStation. Why did people look at that list of games and buy a fucking PlayStation 2 to play the Bouncer
What
and
goes on in that
Fantavision?
fucking game, man? Honestly, I had that whole phase after I bought PS2, right? And like, because I got like my pre-order came in like a fortnight after launch, and I was just going to like GeForce on my lunch break on a Thursday because it always broke the street date and just buying whatever was new. And the Bouncer will be etched in my mind as one of those games that I went home and after loading it went, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it's awful. It's like even visually, it's dung. It's like this Vaseline filter all over it, and it's got that annoying title screen, "The Bouncer." Like, no, just oh,
really
But that
bad PAL version as well, wasn't it? It was like
oh man,
super
like
bordered, super
PlayStation.
slow.
PlayStation 2 is my favorite PlayStation console. It did come good eventually. Obviously, like its record speaks for itself. It's got some amazing games on it. But the first 12 months were fucking awful.
Mm.
Like it was
Yeah.
so bad. And after
Eventually,
you heard all
eventually,
the
it's the worst.
hype, man. Oh, it's just
Yeah.
like
Just all the early games just felt really generic, like racing game, fighting game, or something like that. It's just like that's what it just felt like the shelves were
aye.
filled up
Like,
with.
at least over here, like Tekken Tag Tournament, like got anti-aliasing on it, so it looked better than the Japanese version. The Tekken Tag Tournament, to be fair, still holds up really well. I played it recently because I get that we've got that memory card done that we can play games
yeah,
off the SD cards. But Ridge Racer 5, it is decent a racer as Ridge Racer 5 is. Frame rate's great, but it's just so dull. Like
Mm.
it's just greys and blues.
Yeah, it's
And
very
then
grey.
and then it's again got it home, put it on my PS2, and all my mates have came up. Oh, here we go. James's got the PS2. Let's have a look. Here we go. And then, like, I could swear, like, my Dreamcast was sitting in the corner on the other part of the unit, going, like, you've been conned. This ain't no Toy Story in real time. It's like,
it's the thing. You didn't have anything. So the Jet Set Radio is an example. Like the amount of color on there, the amount of innovation, the amount of personality that comes out of that game. You had nothing on any other console at that time, even like the mature PlayStation, even N64, which was, that should have been hitting its stretch. You had nothing that was quite as imaginative, creative, colorful, and such a vibe to it as like something like Jet Set Radio. You had Crazy Taxi, you even saw the port in the PlayStation 2. It was absolutely atrocious. Wasn't power optimized, played like dog shit, full of jaggies. Then you got stuff like Shenmue coming through. Obviously, that was 99 in Japan. Is it Christmas 99 they got it? And then we got it late 2000. And that's the reason I got a DCX disc so that I could play a PAL Shenmue in my Japanese
Oh,
Dreamcast.
right, yeah.
But that was, that blew my mind when I first played it. That was like that was the
Incredible.
future of great gaming to me.
Yeah, even my dad, he didn't know nothing about games, but he could see something special with Shenmue. I remember he came into our room when we were playing it, and he was just stood there staring at it, and like it was like, well, that does look really good actually. And stuff, and it's like, oh, finally some acknowledgement.
You're right, Dan. You look at the Dreamcast lineup and you think, not the lineup of games and the way it looked and how brilliant and vibrant it looked. It gave the gaming consumer everything that they wanted, everything they complained about with the Saturn. It's all the graphical arguments, lack of transparencies, cross-hatching, all the shit they threw at Sega Saturn. Dreamcast blew everything out the water. It looked amazing. It had this amazing lineup, and the simple fact was Sony had just got such a stranglehold, and it was I know we're an old man shouting into the wind, but it was just a real tragedy because that lineup should have been played by everyone, and you just for a year you're looking at PS2 and just thinking that is such generic, boring, grey looking, murky, horrible resolution looking shit. I don't want to play any of it. Why are people buying that machine? I just you think of Dreamcast. Literally, I look at it and it feels so kind of sparkly and new, isn't it? It's so vibrant, it's so bright, colourful. The graphics, but the gameplay as well. And then even the thing with like, oh, PlayStation went deep and had the RPGs and had the Final Fantasy lockdown, and we're giving them Shenmue, and it's like anything you want is here, and it's bloody amazing, and it's just blowing everything out the water, and you're still not buying it. Screw you.
I know we even had IP. We had Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. I'd left off that list for some reason. We had that year, so we had established IPs, we had new IPs, we had arcade ports, we had everything. I do think because my problem in the year 2000 was that there was so much coming out that I couldn't get all of it, and it just wasn't possible. You know, you do wonder, did Sega oversaturate themselves? You know, you got F355 Challenge, Sega GT. Metropolis Street Racer and Daytona 2001. That's 4 racing games on the same console in the space of a year, all coming from Sega. You know, if you which one are you going to buy? You're only going to buy one of those. I mean, for me, it was MSR. Maybe I got F355 a little bit later. Sega GT I got as well. Daytona I didn't get until years later, which obviously.
They sort of didn't have the install base to mop up the amount of stuff they were putting out. And so then obviously it starts to become a problem for devs. They're not getting their return. But it's like, a little bit of oversaturation. I mean, the one story I tell you is my mate at university, he had a PS1 and the only thing I would tolerate playing on it was ISS and then obviously Pro Evo as it became. That he got a PS2 and like obviously for the last bit of university and then for the few years I knew him afterwards, he never bought another game except for Pro Evo. That's the only thing he played in it because that's nothing else caught his attention. And
Pro
that's
Evo
just,
is
I think,
mint though.
Yeah, I will give it
was
that.
a great
That's the one
series
bit.
at the time.
We did love it, but I said, he bought it for the one simple. He didn't buy it for Pro Evo. He bought it because it was the hype, and then it just sat there, and he was like, I don't know what else to get on it. It just doesn't take my attention. So yeah, it's sad because that year, I mean, that is a hell of a lineup. I mean,
see, people go on as well about how like the Dreamcast failed because people didn't forgive Sega for the Mega CD and the 32X and the Saturn, but I don't think it's that at all. I think people just forgot about them. I just think people moved on. I don't think
the gap at the end of the 90s.
Yeah, there was a gap, wasn't there?
If Stoller had basically just backed Saturn better, if he hadn't brought any stupid 5-point plan that all games had to pass to get a release, and he basically stripped the release schedule. The problem that he had is that he came into Sega and he came in and he still seen Saturn as like his rival. He still very much, it wasn't his product. He still had a very PlayStation Sony mindset, I think, and he couldn't shake it. And Saturn was just like the enemy to him. So I think that's what happened. He basically, in the West, he stripped Sega's retail presence completely back. And at the time that he's pulling Sega back, Sony are just basically bombarding people. And the PlayStation's going up like that. So there may well be a small element of people going, they made that machine that, I don't think anybody in 2000 is going, I've never forgiven them for discontinuing 32X. No, I'm not buying that. I'm really not buying that. I think that the problem is that basically the arcades were pretty much dying. People were getting the experiences in console that they could now have in the arcade. Didn't have to venture out and spend money in coin ops. And, Sony had just basically captured that market, and Sega were not on store shelves anywhere. They weren't in adverts, they weren't in print, they weren't in TV, they weren't in cinema. They were nowhere.
Yeah.
That gap killed them. And the thing is, though, Into the Void did step some of PS1's strongest titles. Just as we were getting the last Saturn titles, along comes Metal Gear.
The best of PS1 came whenever Saturn was gone.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
To be like if that 98, 99 PS1 lineup had been up against Saturn, this bitterness would not still be with me 30 years later. Because that's PlayStation found its stride and it had some absolute belters, and like you can never take it away from it. Like the amount of quality that is in that library, unfortunately, yeah, in that gap, in the void, were some of its most memorable titles. And, Metal Gear is what was in. Forget, yeah, it wasn't anger at 32X. What people had in their head was Metal Gear. When
Metal Gear and
PS2 was
Gran
coming out.
Turismo.
Yeah,
I
and
think
Gran Turismo.
that's the two. Like especially in the UK, like Gran Turismo was, and again, ISS that was going to become Pro Evo. It's like ISS '98. I mean, with Ravanelli and Ince on the front cover, grilling at each other.
Yeah.
Again, like, I used to. It was a guy I used to go to college with called Derek, and on a Friday we only had one period in the morning, and like, Dell was a good maybe 5-6 year older than me at the time, and used to go back to his after the first period, and all we would do is like would have like other boys would come up with like fucking ISS '98 tournaments, like, and he always went Bulgaria because he does big bastard at the back he couldn't get past, and I'm running about with Ronaldo with his wee triangle haircut, and this big Bulgarian sod's just putting him 10 foot in the air every time, but like. I mean, those. But again, they're all games that came after Saturn had, long since been put to pasture by Stoller. So, the best of like Tekken 3 took Sony the best part of 3 years to come up with a fighting game that could even hold a candle to VF2. You know what I mean? Tekken 2 is a cracking fighting game, but it's very, very basic looking in comparison, a lot slower. PAL version again doesn't stand up anywhere near the PAL version of VF2. So, but and that kind of golf, it's like the PS1 had such a strong 98, while Sega were nowhere to be seen, and I think that people just had moved on. That's all it come down to.
It just felt so weird when there wasn't even like a Sega magazine around anymore. It was like, oh man, it was like the last bastion of hope, like Richard Ledbetter like fighting that last battle kind of thing. But it was like, there's nothing now. Now you just got to wait for the Dreamcast. Like, and it felt like such a huge gap. It was like, that was painful.
It was like 18 months.
Edge magazine was the kind of the one place in print that kind of kept, like the CVG as well, but not anywhere near the degree of Edge, because I like the fact that Edge kind of kept you up to date with the industry. They weren't like a kind of games magazine. They were more than reviews and previews. They kind of deep dive, and they kind of kept you more kind of in the loop about what was happening with Sega. But obviously,
and I'll tell you what, you go back to Edge now, the interviews they got as well. So the name, the big names we all know now, like they're in there. They had some proper depth, and some of the people they talked to, Sega people included, that you'd think that there was no sort of bias cutting them out. There's some it's like a real gold mine if you want to go back and, pick up facts and stuff from the day. It's cracking.
Great magazine. Well, it was. I've not read an issue of Edge in a long time, but back then, man, they were brilliant.
Yeah.
So 2000. I mean, it's kind of bittersweet, really, isn't it? You read that list of games, and there's so many more, and it was almost for naught because while some of these are enduring classics, Skies of Arcadia, Fantasy Star Online, Crazy Taxi, Shenmue, Virtua Tennis are just they're Sega stalwarts. They're household names now. But obviously, that's when Dreamcast sales started to tail off, and they had that big push to get to the end of the year, and ultimately couldn't meet the sales target. So it is a bittersweet year. But I think in terms of, if you're just thinking about games, I mean, arcade wise, there's nothing, and that's the other thing. There's nothing to add on top of this. Crazy Taxi was a big arcade game. Virtua Tennis was a big arcade game. They all came back to the Dreamcast for like just a few months later. So yeah, that's my pitch for 2000. I think on the strength of games, might have convinced myself a little bit as well. Maybe it was better than 96.
I mean, I 2000 also has the worst sequel of the Dreamcast library in April 2000 on the Naomi. And it came out April. What was it? April in the arcades? End of April in Japan. August over here. Power Stone 2.
Yes.
Poor old Power Stone 2. That's a good game.
The best way to play Power Stone 2 is to choose the 1v1 mode and pretend it's the first game.
It's good in 4-player, but yeah, it's not as tight as the first game.
The tightness is there. I think one thing you say about it, sad as it is, it's kind of, we're now seeing some of what it landed, and that is legacy, because obviously some of those titles are the ones that are coming back, and it's that amazing core. The fact it did get overlooked, that's making it such a darling of the retro scene now. You know, people are discovering Dreamcast in the last year and just thinking, oh my God, this stuff's good. And obviously it's a bit, where were you 25 years ago? But
where were you when we needed you?
You know, it is nice it's being found. I mean, I always look across the N64 and you just think that has always had its diehards, and it's got such a slim, narrow core of amazing games. And you put it up against what you've just listed and you think, oh my God, Dreamcast blew out the water. N64's always had its fans. I think people are just amazed coming to Dreamcast and thinking, oh my God, how did I not know about this?
Yeah.
Like, how did I not know this stuff was there? And it's, you know, bittersweet. Yeah.
The N64 would have a great library if it had a 3D fighter, a decent RPG, an arcade racer, a decent shooter. Well, it's got GoldenEye, I suppose.
What you're saying is, if it would have good games. If it had some good games.
If it wasn't just great in about 2 or 3 genres.
If it didn't have Mario 64, Mario Kart, and Zelda, then it would be great. You know.
I'll tell you what though, Rayman 2 is better than Mario 64, and that was on the Dreamcast in 2000 as well.
Yeah.
And the comments are on fire.
I know. The thing, it doesn't take much. Is there anything that doesn't beat Mario 64 in your eyes, so Dan? I mean, Clockwork Knight, does that beat it?
Yeah, I prefer Clockwork Knight.
I prefer Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga.
Street Fighter 2, the movie's better than Mario 64. Oh yeah, so God, that's it, and that's us then, guys. So that's 4 years. Who's sticking with their current year, or who's shifting, or are we at a stalemate?
Hey, I'll tell you this. I heard you rattling off 2000, and I was thinking, I'm not sure how you can compete with that. But
yeah, Crazy Taxi alone.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I was skint. I could barely buy anything. Like I was barely able to play any games, but that lineup of Crazy Taxi alone reignited my passion for gaming. And just I had to play it. So it had some proper personal like nostalgia as well. I just about stick with 96 just because like we were in our peak. That was our peak gaming year, and so much is attached to it. But I don't know, on strength of lineup, you might pip it. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, all those games that you rattled off, Dan, I mean, I was 21 in 2000, so I was like, you know, I was working at that point, so I remember buying all these games on import to Charlie's, like, so I mean, if I could split myself the multiverse of the Segaholic, and I could, and one part of me can.
I've just got this thought of you being Doctor Strange. I've just gone through 55 million realities. How many did Sega win the console war? Just one.
If I tell you how, it'll never happen. But if I could split myself and say 95 has got so many personal memories and that love for the Saturn, but man, 2000 was just like, felt like Sega were just literally screaming at people and going, "Is this not enough? Take more! Get more!
Are you not entertained?"
Oh, my name is Sega Dreamcastus Maximus. All of them murdered Saturn.
Mate, that so works. We've got to make that a meme because he's wronged in this life and he's going to carry it on. It's just it all fits. It all fits.
I will have my vengeance in this life.
Just got an image. The credits are rolling. There's a Sega Dreamcast in the cornfield with that.
That the sound when you turn it on and the fan kicks in or something.
No, the Joaquin Phoenix is like that, and then the VMU battery dies. Beep.
Like, oh mate, even the way Joaquin Phoenix stabs him in the back, you know, with the poison knife or whatever. That's
Bernie Stoller.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Oh, man.
Oh well, I think yeah, it's tough to choose a winner, and it always would be. So obviously, we'll let our friends, our viewers, and our listeners all weigh in on what their thoughts are on Sega's greatest year. But guys, thanks so much for coming on. It's been an absolute blast.
I
Always just when
don't
you
want
guys
to stop. Keep talking. It's too much fun.
come. But there will be more from you guys on the Sega guys in the coming weeks. So definitely looking forward to that because
Yeah.
that's going to be
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
it's going to be
Thank you.
another
Cheers, guys.
fantastic chat. But no, thank you so much for coming. Where can people find you if they haven't already?
Dave, do you want to see the honest? I mean, we're everywhere. So rattle off. If you look for @gaming_4_ages on YouTube, Twitter, Insta, anywhere you'll find us on there. Main one is YouTube, Gaming for Ages.
The underscores are very important. I found out if you don't put those in, you don't find us.
Because you're on podcatchers as well with the book club, aren't you? Which I only found out
Yeah.
recently because and you get the video content with there as well through Spotify as well, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's
So,
quite
yeah.
handy. That so I have to be honest. Like that's the way I do my podcasts. Not necessarily ours, but other people's, because it's just so handy. You can start off at home, nip into the car, whack it on the stereo, don't miss anything. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you're actually on the. I was listening to the finishing off the Mario one earlier, and I was giving my missus a lift to work, and because I went to pause, I thought she doesn't want to listen to this. She went, "No, I want to listen to what you're listening to." I was like, "All right." She was like, "Who are these?" I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to them later."
Heard 20 seconds of it. Actually, no, I don't.
But no, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. And viewers, listeners, would love to hear what you think. What is Sega's greatest year? Is it one of the ones that we've talked about today? Is it another year? Get in touch via the comments below, via the Sega Guys Discord or Radio Sega Discord if that's where you're listening to us. If you've enjoyed what you've been seeing on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe because that really helps the channel. And if you want to be extra mega, you can think about becoming a member with a bunch of awesome perks from as little as 99 pence. And our Akira All Access members get a very special thank you, just like James is about to read out right now.
Certainly, our Akira All Access members for today's show are G-Man, Stiff Peaks, Mikowski, Craig Williamson, Sega Saturn Shiro, Resident SD, P-Wall, Peter 007, Andy Mackey, Nick Tullock, Greg Matthews, Tom Thumb, Kaiju Leviathan, best name ever, keep saying it every single week, Nelson Serino and David Owens. Thank you very much to all our members and subscribers. The push to 13k is on, just past 12.5. Let's try and get to 20 for the end of the year. So thank you very much to all our members and subscribers for your continued support.
Yes, and if a membership or a like and subscribe isn't what you're looking for, if you've just enjoyed being with us today, we would love that you've come to join and spend your time with the Sega Guys. And we'll hope to see you again. So we'll see you next time on the Sega side.
Sega!